catch a bluefin tuna, and trade it for a car. This is no exaggeration, so a lot of people go after it. But there are dangers in the process of fishing, like a sudden storm and the sudden damage to the ship, the breaking of a fishing rod. Are you willing to catch bluefin tuna? Just how dangerous it is to catch bluefin tuna. Let's take a look. Night. Dave and his team have arrived at the port. Dave says he's got a big shot on this trip. He's very confident in his tuna catch. When he was 14, one has been caught with 1,000 pounds of bluefin tuna. Experienced, Dave was trying to keep his opponent from finding out where he was. In the afternoon, various materials have been purchased to equip the equipment. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he came to the port, finished loading materials and equipment. With the cabin lights off, at 4 o'clock, he quietly set out for Iceland. Even sailing ships are barefaced. The location of this fishing spot. They chose to be outside of room 2 in Iceland. This fishing spot is the one they know best. It's also where the most tuna are caught. Brother Beard woke up in the morning. Turns out Dave's boat is gone. He said he could find Dave wherever he was. He spent $2,000 on materials and equipment. After placing the bait material in the cooler, put the rod and line equipment in the cabin. I started heading towards Iceland to find Dave. The camera comes to Bill. Bill won a bluefin tuna race once. They caught this 5 years ago. A tuna weighing more than 1,000 pounds. The other one weighs 700 pounds. He said he was confident this time. This time, he will take his wife Mina with him. He knew he was in a dangerous position. You can get caught in a storm if you're not careful. While they were all on their way, Dave has arrived in Iceland, and after drinking tea and enjoying the beautiful scenery, they will be preparing richer lures. After putting the bait in the water, before they get here, I've already made a few swings. By this time, Beard had seen Dave's boat. After he stopped the boat, he put the rod and line together and started throwing in the bait. Other side of the lens, Paul says as long as the bait is in abundance, there will be tuna swimming up to eat. While he was assembling his fishing line, Dave's already picked it up on radar. There are 3 big fish under the boat. When he marked, suddenly the detector drops. At once he came to the fishing pole. At this time, Huzi brother also found 3 big fish. Swim to Dave. Suddenly the fish are served. As you can see from this bend in the rod, it's a 500-pound fish. Dave quickly pulled in the line. His teammates slowly adjusted the hull. As they carefully brought the fish to the boat, Dave realized it was a thresher shark. Finally, the shark cut the line. Sharks also dived to the bottom. Huzi saw that their fishing line was broken. Happy point, a jade stream. Beard also picked up the phone to laugh at Dave. Dave also said it was an accident. Paul felt he had to serve the fish. It turned out to be a long-tail shark. What a bad day. While Whiskers and Chi were still laughing at Dave, suddenly a big fish swam up from under the boat. He baited the hook and released it into the sea. Then something started to happen. With the sound of the fishing line, Jay heard the noise, too. He quickly hauled in the line. It was his first big catch. In the process of retrieving his fishing line, put a small food, causing the big fish to disconnect. At this time, the Beard brother angrily scolded Jay, but he can't do anything right. Jay can only. I listened helplessly. He also realized that he was apologizing to the Beard. At this time, Dave also came to the Beard biography, made a mockery of them. He says that's what he gets for taunting him. The camera comes to Bill. He's been here 3 times. Still not a fish in sight. He contacted Dave, prepared to proceed to his position. Dave was trying to use Bill. Gave him a wrong spot. Dave's in the cabin. Already excited, he walked to the spot Dave had given him. I saw Dave's boat right behind me. Bill didn't suspect Dave yet. The camera goes to Brother Beard, doubtful at this moment. To make Beard happy, he caught a little fish. Huzi brother saw, just have a smile. He also used the little fish as a hat. They both became happy. At this point, Dave changed 2 fishing spots. Still don't understand why no fish bite. Paul said he'd take the bait. Now, they're not hungry. Fish have to eat. Just not yet. When Dave gets ready to pull the line, there was a sudden movement in the fishing line. The fish took the bait. He quickly hauled in the line. His teammates cooperated. The old horse slowly adjusted the boat forward. Now the big fish pulls the line to the stern, but their rods are on the side of the boat. Dave said to change the rod position to the stern. In this way, there is no decoupling. Paul heard. Also moved forward to help change the rod to the stern. Dave says this fish is very strong. It's like a tug of war with 50 people. After 5 minutes of their tug of war, as Dave pulls the fish over to the boat, Paul has seen a bluefin tuna. When the fish start to come out of the water, Paul's already got his harpoon. In one stab, Dave then took the rope and tied the fish's tail. After pulling the fish into the boat, they quickly put the tail of the fish. The section and head were cut off. Make the tuna stop moving quickly. Keeps the meat fresh. After they clean the fish, put the fish in the freezer quickly. Dave said, this bluefin tuna is estimated to weigh 600 pounds. How much can be earned back to Hong Kong? May know. At this time, the Beard still did not see a fish, just a bunch of seabirds, picking up his bait one by one. He also took out the thunder directly to chase away the seabirds. The camera comes to Bill. He changed his fishing spot twice. At last, there was some movement. When he was getting his fishing rod moved, there's a big trawler on the other side, headed for his boat. He hoped the net would not catch his anchor. If we hook his anchor, they get pulled down by big fishing boats. When the big fishing boat came to their boat, his worst fears were realized. The big fishing boat caught his anchor. He tried to communicate with the other side. Big fishing boats throw dead fish at them. He raised his middle finger in a mocking gesture. Bill was so angry that he made a beep sound. They still cut the anchor line in the back. If we don't, we'll be pulled down by big fishing boats. He said there was no anchor. The boat will not stay in the designated position. It also affects them badly. Fishing bait is a big worry. The camera comes to Dave. It was 2 in the morning. Dave and Paul are already asleep. The old horse was still up late throwing bait into the sea. By him sticking with the bait, the fishing line began to ring. The old horse also quickly held the fishing rod. Now, Paul heard the drip of the probe too. They were instantly refreshed. Get out of the cabin quickly. Adjust the hull. After the old horse handed the fishing rod to Dave, he went to adjust the hull. Bend through the fishing rod. David guessed that the fish was about 800 pounds. Paul was very excited. I got the harpoon. When Dave pulled the fish over to the boat, when Paul threw the harpoon, the soldier made a mistake. No stab. But Dave didn't make a mistake. He continued to pull the fish to the boat. The second time Paul finally nailed it. They drew the fish to the boat. The tail was hooked up and the fish was hauled onto the boat. Turns out it was a bluefin tuna. At this time, they excitedly expressed, "Today they caught 2 bluefin tuna." That's when Bill found out Dave had lied to him. He couldn't believe it. Bill, however, lost faith in Dave. The next morning, Bill got a message. Not far from him are some bluefin tuna. Now Bill quickly went to New West Point. Sure enough, there was movement as soon as they got to the probe. They put the bait in the water. Soon there was a hissing noise from the receiver. Glasses man quickly twisted the reel. At last Bill smiled. He began to command. Nami kept adjusting the position of the boat through the Glasses brother quick line. It dragged it about slowly to the side of the boat. Bill had already got his harpoon. Gradually, the fish came out of the water. Bill took the harpoon and shot him through the right. They pulled the fish into the boat. Turned out to be a 500-pound bluefin tuna. Bill returned to Hong Kong overnight. The specific income will be known after return to Hong Kong. At this time, the beard is still shouting, "How come no fish have taken so long?" He said it was another day in the Air Force. Bill was the first to return to port to sell his fish. Their bluefin tuna weighs 500 pounds. Today they make $3,000. Then Dave returned to the port. Their bluefin tuna weighs 800 pounds. Today they make $6,000. What other big fish will be caught next? Let's wait and see. Why do so many people want to catch tuna? Because you can earn it in a day at sea to $10,000. Of course, catching tuna is also a dangerous business. It's not just the weather. The fishing rod could break at any moment. Being pulled into the water by tuna is the norm. Seabirds attack you when you pass by. Trying to catch tuna, you need to have the technology to exact the thrusting weight. Is likely to succeed in capturing. Vision, would you still like to go? Today Dave, Paul, and Old Horse are at the pier. Has left Gloucester Harbor in a pack. We're headed for Cape Cod to catch tuna. They turned around Cape Cod 3 times. Found the perfect place to fish. Then he stopped the boat. The bay is the place they know best. It's also the best fishing location. Dave's team caught a lot of fish this season, 10 times stronger than anyone else. While Dave was serving the fish, they don't have any. He catches too many fish. So they put the fish on the splint. Dave thought it was awesome to be in the lead. The swivel beard is right behind him. He goes everywhere with a beard, you know? Beard had already spent $3,000 before he set sail. Their harvest depends on these 5 days. On this cruise, they'll be with Sly Dave Kim, brother whose team has no money left. With his last $500, he bought various materials. If the equipment is broken, you have to fix it yourself. If this fails, will be his last. Brother who didn't see any fish today. He paddled stealthily across. Dave sticks side to sea. They try to catch some fish to feed to the seagulls. Feed the seagull and prepare to chase him away. Suddenly, they sighed. Dave looked through the fish finder and spotted a big one. I'm not sure it's tuna from this angle. When they want to mark, we've seen him around the ship. Paul used fish hunting. The test shows that the bait has been eaten. It's an 800-pound fish, just swimming under the boat. Dave found fish within 20 meters to 4 generations. Huzi saw 2 fish under their boat. They're eating Dave's bait. He could see it through his fish finder. There are more fish under Dave's boat. There's a big red sign. It's like a giant tuna. Dave, the fishing rod, is already ringing. He began to reel in the line. Paul saw a big fish. At this time, the old horse also cooperated with Dave to adjust. The boat moved on slowly. Dave keeps the tail out of the water first, so Paul can get stabbed in the side. That's what makes a successful capture possible. Past Dave's fast limit, gradually the fish came to the surface. We're only 10 meters away from the hull. It's nice to see the colors by the boat. It's a big fish. He leaned on the hull. It was Dave who had seen the mysterious colors. Then Paul took out his harpoon in a single thrust with skilled move. Then the old horse also stopped the boat. Keep the boat from hitting the tuna. When Paul gets the rope for the tail, the tuna swung his tail and hit Dave. It hurts like he's been hit by a baseball. He touched his face and continued pulsating. He hauled the fish up. Dave hauled the fish to the boat and estimated it was 550 pounds. Should bring in $7,000. At this time, Paul smiled happily. Beard couldn't wait to see Dave's harvest. He He wants to fish as soon as possible. Brother who saw a lot of fish marks today. There's just no hook. It's like the fish heard his mark. Suddenly, I heard the sound of fish finder. Brother Beard slowly redraws the line. He tried to take out another fishing rod. This fish has been spinning with Beard for 5 minutes. Just don't bite the hook. He pulled up the bait. I hope the big fish can fill him up. Foot time. Now there were 2 big fish under his boat. With the sound of the fishing rod drop, unclothed, quickly retract the line. Who's brother directly forward to help. Knott's got the harpoon ready. When the fish come out of the water, he got a straight shot. Quickly put the rope around the fish's tail. But the fish kept swinging its tail. It made Jay feel terrible. Whiskers said angrily that Jay was too slow to catch fish. Wait until the fish is out of power. The bearded brother was stunned. It turned out to be a shark, because they don't have a shark permit. Unsaleable, but you can save it for dinner. He says he wants to share what he catches. That's one of the things that Beard likes. He also took out the shark's head as a souvenir. The camera comes to Bill. They've had bad luck this season. A lot of fish were lost. Dave gave Bill the wrong address. It made it hard for him to trust Dave. Before Hooker went fishing, I have parties with my family back home. To feed my 3 children, he, too, ran to the sea. Became a fishing guy. The camera goes to Yellow Hair. By this time, they had begun to catch the bait, and Bill is still working on his own boat. Then Dave came to Bill's stick, bragging about how they caught a 500-pound fish. Said Bill angrily. Dave lied to him about the direction of the internet speed. Bill didn't catch a fish. Dave says it's the angler's secret. After he left, Bill dialed Yellow Hair's phone to tell Dave that he lied to himself. Yellow Hair said he would use a good way to get back at Dave. Dave was complaining about these fishers. Get angry when you can't catch a fish. When he found out that Yellow Hair was blaming him, he came to Bill's place with great enthusiasm. End of dinner, Brother Huzi began his fishing again. Fishwork also picked up $1,000. Went to buy the best equipment. Dave's been asleep for 3 hours. Still no fish bite. At this time, Yellow Hair called to say he's got giant tuna. Get Dave there as soon as possible. Beard's gonna lose $3,000 this time. Here too, his team was better equipped. Dave came to Yellow Hair, and it's the place with the most boats. What does he mean to see? At this time, Yellow Hair said to him, there are no fish, and asked him to help collect the fish. Brother who was ready to put the equipment away. Now we're just waiting for the fish to bite. The line hissed. Brother Beard held the rod as fast as he could, determined to retrieve the line as quickly as possible. Leela came up and found the fish gone. But it was a tuna bite, just didn't bite the hook. The camera goes to Yellow Hair. Haven't seen a big fish all morning. It's all these seabirds calling. At this point, Bean Brother chased the seabirds out of the boat. They hate the seabirds. It was already raining lightly. The seabirds snatched up the bait that Bean had just thrown. Beanie harpoons the birds angrily. Yellow Hair contacted Bill as soon as he could. What should we do with the birds? Mr. Riel said it would be hard to dislodge. Only Nami can continue to cast the bait. Dave says seabirds are hard to keep away, but he has a bait net. Seabirds don't get the bait. All they have to do is put the bait in. The bait can be lowered to a depth of 30 meters. Paul says this is the best way to catch tuna. The rod was sizzling when he was putting out the bait. Dave's already said he's got a fish. He used skillful movements to bring the line back quickly. Bill saw Dave on the other side already serving the fish. Dave doesn't think it's tuna. He could already feel the fish destroying the line. He pulled it up to the boat and found it. Shark. He had to let the shark go. Reload the bait. Yellow Hair has found out it's a shark. Tell Bill. He is happy. And then there was movement on the Beard's side. The line was pulled 50 meters in 3 seconds. He found the fish had been cut off with a gun. Another bad one. It's easy to feel like a day is all sharks. It means wasting money on fishing. He was also comforting Brother Beard. There's gonna be a big fish on the hook. Yellow Hair got a call from Gloucester. Be a big fish. Hurry over and see. Beard needs a big fish today. He said he would end the competition if he didn't fish. Yellow Hair means to catch a huge tuna today. When Bean was putting out his bait, suddenly the fishing rod made a sizzling sound. Yellow Hair pulls in the line as fast as he can. Dave found the Yellow Hair by now too. Bean Brother slowly pulled the fishing line with his hand. Suddenly the fish hit the boat. Got Yellow Hair all wet. Bean Man pulls the fish to the boat. Yellow Hair puts the harpoon straight into the spear. They pulled the fish into the boat. The measurement exceeds the required size. The specific income will only be known after returning to Hong Kong. Now, Beard's fishing rod also sounded the sound of sizzling. He got out of the cabin quickly, grabbed the rod and reel in the line. This time it was a tuna. He pulled in the line quickly. I think this fish should be worth $1,000. Just pull it out of the water. It was a huge fish. Jay pulls the fish over the side of the boat. Beard's got his harpoon in hand. In one stab, when he caught the fish's tail with the hook, suddenly the equipment dropped. Jay got the rope around the fish's tail as fast as he could. Tow aboard after 2 sizes. Size up to standard. The specific income will not be known until the return of Hong Kong. What other big fish will be caught next? Let's wait and see. What kind of fish is Alice? Let him fish for so long. Do you think we can catch this? Today, Yellow Hair and Bean Brother came to the harbor. Placed the fish rod equipment in the boat. I'm going to start the ropes and start the boat, preparing to head west of the East Island to catch tuna. Yellow Hair learned, fishing friends in the west have begun to fish. Bean says he doesn't like working at sea on weekends. Too many fishers on the weekend. Let them have a big competition. Before dawn, Bean brother has begun to select rich fish to use as bait. He indicated a qualified bait will represent their harvest today. Come to Dave today. He found a fishing boat, stopped not far away. We'll be competing with them for fishing spots. He said he hated having people follow him fishing. This will affect today's harvest. Paul says there are too many boats out fishing on weekends. It also means that today's competitiveness has increased. The last thing he wanted was for the two ships to get too close together. Can cause the ship's anchors to hook together. Is a very dangerous thing. Dave says he's been fishing at this spot for a long time. They've never had a fishing boat come this close. But he has no right to kick them out. Paul thinks they should be kicked out. At this time, the old horse said that there was a fight at sea, but he never saw any of them. Paul goes straight to the action. The camera goes to Brother Beard. The fishing spot they chose this time was in the northern part of the East Island. He said the weather was not very good at this fishing spot. There is a strong wind every day. Affect the harvest. He's changing his fishing spot this weekend. The camera is coming to Yellow Hair. Beanie's already swinging. Yellow Hair means there's a little more people fishing today. He looked at all the boats beside him. It affects the catch of tuna. Just then a boat passed beside him, scaring away all their fish. He says it is difficult to catch tuna on weekends. Doug will be at sea. The real picture shows. Just then a fishing boat came up beside them. We'll stop next to them. Yellow Hair shouted for the opposite fishing boat to stay away from him, but he could not be heard on the other side. He said the two fishing boats were too close together. Can cause the Hair to cut the line. Now Yellow Hair can only shout. This is their fishing spot. Get the opposite boat out of this spot. The opposite responded, but has no intention of leaving. The camera comes to Bill. He looked for a fishing spot for 2 hours. Found too many fishing boats. It's hard to find a good fishing spot. Name representation. The last place he liked was where there were lots of boats. They need to get around the fishing boat on the other side. It's possible to find a good fishing spot. Bill said it would take a lot of time to get around, and there might be no fish there. The camera goes over to Dave. They began to cut the bait, ready to nest. As Dave fixed the rod, still saw the fishing boat opposite and didn't leave. When he put in the bait, the fishing rod began to make a silky sound. The old horse quickly pulled in the fishing line, probably 500 pounds from the angle of the rod. Dave rushed out of the cabin. The old horse handed the fishing rod to Dave. Paul's already got his harpoon. Gradually, the tuna came out of the water. Paul stabbed them with a harpoon. Pull the fish over the boat. Put a rope around the tail of the fish. Pull the fish to the boat. By this time, Dave could not hold back his smile. Paul quickly cut the fish's tail loose. It will calm the fish down quickly. At this moment, Dave was already showing off to the fishing boat across the way. This is the first fish they've caught today. Paul put the fish in the cooler. Use an ice pack. Dave said the fish weighed about 500 pounds. The specific income can be learned after returning to Hong Kong. Bill was still casting his bait. Eyeglasses. It's been so long without a fish. Bill began to laugh. Glasses. Nami said it was bad luck today. The camera goes to Yellow Hair. He contacted Bill. No one said there was a fish here, and there are a lot of boats bothering them. Bill says he doesn't have a mouth here either. At this time, the bearded brother came to another fishing spot. Still no movement on the fishing rod. Jay said it was a bad day. Not a single fish. He's been looking at the balloon on the boat for a long time. Still no movement. Huzi saw a lot of fish from the detector. There's just no hook. Angry Jay shouted out to sea. At this time, Brother Beard will take out the fresh bait. He said to catch big fish, use fresh bait. Suddenly, Jay noticed a shark on his fishing pole. He sprayed the shark with water and drove him away. The camera comes to Dave. He says today is a good day. This time, they had a harvest on their first day at sea. They catch one and return to port overnight. When pulling the fish out of the boat, they can't wait for the benefits. They ended up with $5,000. Today, Huzij took the unearthed sea fishing rod, ready to catch an 800-pound tuna. Nod is still asleep in the cabin. The big lame beard has started to throw his bait. Through the detector, he found something close to the hull. He brought out the lively bait. Don't forget to kiss it when you put it in the water. He said he had to catch a big fish today. Now the fishing rod began to stir. When Brother Beard brought in the line, he knew it was a shark by force. He cut the fishing line decisively. Let the shark go. The camera comes to Bill. He said he could not catch any fish. It could be his equipment material. Today he's going to buy better gear. At this time, the store manager asked him whether he had recently harvested. He said he had lost a lot of money recently. Still didn't catch a fish. When he bought the equipment to play, he remembered the picture of fish. Laugh happily. The camera came to Dave. He said today is still a little more competitive after they fixed the fishing rod. Paul says it's windy today. There could be big fish. Dave thinks the wind is about to pick up. The more expensive the fish, the old horse began to laugh. He said he'd get 800 pounds today. The camera goes to Yellow Hair. Yellow Hair can't stay any longer. Not a single fish. He thinks it's a fishing problem. Bean Brother also began to worry. He said the bait was ready to run out. At this point, the detector sounded a dripping sound. The fishing rod began to bend. Yellow Hair quickly forward to pull the line back. He gave the fishing rod to Bean. Bean says from this angle, I think it's a big tuna. He pulled the line in with a skilled tug. Suddenly, the fishing line was cut. Yellowhair looked at the fishing rod, disappointing. Bean said he didn't even notice when the line broke. Yellowhair pulls in the line, found the hook was gone. He said it was a particularly unlucky day. I finally got a fish. And the line broke. The camera comes to Dave. They have begun to put the bait into the water. Paul also took out his rod. He said when he took out the wand, has shown today's harvest. By this time, Dave had secured his rod. The detector also beeped. Paul threw fresh bait into the water. Suddenly, the rod began to bend. Dave quickly pulled the line in. Paul heard this and rushed forward to check. Dave pulled in the line with skillful action. His teammates also cooperated in adjusting the hull. He predicted from Larry that it should be 800 pounds of fish. Dave said the fish should fetch $10,000. Gradually, I can see the color of tuna. Paul saw that the fish body was already. An excited Dave eased the fish off the boat. Paul had already got his harpoon in hand. As Dave pulls the fish out of the water, Paul stabbed them with a precise shot. We'll pull to the boat. Put a rope around the tail of the fish. They start pulling the fish into the boat. After towing, Paul quickly drained the blood from the fish. Keep the fish fresh. Dave says he caught another big fish today. The specific income can be learned after returning to Hong Kong. The camera comes to Bill. He calls Yellowhair to tell Dave that he's already got 2 fish. Yellowhair angry said today he also on the big fish. Too bad the line didn't hold. Bill says he'll be catching fish soon. At this time, the Yellowhair is still complaining. 2 days and still no fish. Then Bean saw a boat approaching them. Yellowhair angry to scold the opposite ship. He said that when he heard Dave get on the fish, already angry, and then there were fishing boats. He called loudly to the fishing boat opposite. At this time, the opposite fishing boat also began to abuse. The camera comes to Bill. Their fishing rods still didn't move. Glasses says he's running out of bait material. Still no fish bite. Without fish, they will lose $500 today. They tagged a big fish half an hour ago. Bill looked through the detector. The fish is still in the bottom of the boat. Nami drops the last of their bait into the water. At this point, the probe began to make noise. As the fishing rod began to bend, Brother Glasses quickly pulled the line back. Nami looks like a big fish from this Larry. Just then a fishing boat came towards them. Bill says this will prevent them from getting fish. He shouted as loudly as he could at the fishing boat opposite, but there was no response. Just watch the fishing boats get closer and closer. Glasses says the boat's movement will scare the big fish. This can lead to big fish decoupling. When he was recycling his fishing line, sure enough, the line is still cut. Nami could only look at the fishing rod helplessly. Glasses pulled up the fishing line. Sure enough, it broke. Bill could only look at the cut fishing line. He said he lost another $200. Glasses' brother instantly lost the mood. Bill says it's an 800-pound fish. To cut the fishing line, at this time, he took out the walkie-talkie contact Yellowhair. It means he's a big fish. Unfortunately, the fishing line is broken. Yellowhair tells him to buy thicker fishing line. The camera goes to Brother Beard. Now he was pulling back the anchor. He says he uses many methods today. Still not a single big fish took the bait. He's running out of fish. No fish today. He will lose $300. At this point, Jay doesn't care about serving fish. They're out of bait material, so they return to port. The camera comes to Dave. They never run out of bait. Paul said he could catch another big fish. As they line up to return to port, the probe suddenly beeped again. Paul looked through the detector and found 2 fish. They threw the rest of the bait into the water. Dave put his fishing line in the water too. Already he felt the big fish coming towards him. The old horse said it was another exciting time. At this point, the receiver started hissing. Dave pulled the line in quickly. The old horse also cooperated to adjust the hull. Dave slowly pulled the line back in. We can tell by the pull that it should be 800 pounds. Paul got rid of the rope ahead of time. Dave then pulled the fish over to the boat. Paul also took the harpoon. When Dave pulls the fish within 2 meters of the boat, Paul threw the harpoon. Too bad it didn't hit, causing the fish to swim to the right. Dave continued to pull the fish closer to the boat. Now Paul prepares the stickbacks again. When the fish come out of the water, he went straight in with a bullet. He was too excited. Movement leads to a low shot miss. He laughed out loud at the second stab. Now, they dragged the fish into the boat. Paul quickly drained the blood from the fish. It keeps the meat fresh. It's a good tuna from this point of view. They use a lot of it. It's 4 meters long. They left the fish in bags frozen with ice. After tying the rope, Dave began to get excited. At this point, the Yellowhair team gathers the anchor and prepares to return to port. He said it was another day in the Air Force. They will lose $300 today. Bill says he hasn't had a harvest in 2 weeks. He also lost $500 today. That night, Dave returned to the port. They'll pull the boat out. You can see it's a pretty good fish. The seller offered $10,000 in return. Paul took pictures of his haul today. He laughed happily. Dave said it was a rewarding trip. What other big fish will be caught next? It takes 3 men to haul a tuna, just how heavy it is. Something this big could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Where can you catch tuna that big? Let's take a look. In the morning, Dave's team had already started nesting. He said time is money. As long as they're up in the morning, they're more likely to catch fish. Paul throws his most abundant bait to the water. Dave said it was a good catch today. By this time, they had fixed the fishing rod. The camera comes to Bill. The team also began to put in hooks. He said he lost $500 last week. He spent another $300 on the voyage. There's a new fishing buddy in this tournament. He said that while you were at school, he's already started fishing for big fish. The camera comes to Dave. This time their fishing spot was in the west of Iceland. Then he saw a boat stop ahead of him. Dave wanted them to leave him alone. Getting too close will lead to nothing for either side. Dave said they may have stopped the boat on purpose. There was nothing the team could do. He looked through his binoculars and it was Dave. To get them off the fishing spot, he knew Dave was never in the Air Force before he went out. So today he's going to make fun of Dave. He said if we take Dave's fishing spot away, he won't have any fish. He didn't respond to Dave. Dave could only watch as the boats drew closer. Dave says he's been here a long time. This never happens. It means catching a bigger fish than Dave today. He says this is his best chance to catch a big fish. The camera comes to Dave. That's when their probe suddenly started moving. Paul came through the detector as a big fish. The old horse began to throw bait into the water. Dave slowly lowered the line to the water, and there was movement in Bill too. He looked through the detector and saw big fish under the boat. He indicated that this was the right fishing spot. Nami already feels like she's on the verge of a big fish. At this point, Beard's side began to make move. Quickly get out of the cabin and drop the bait into the water. Jay went through the detector and found a big fish. At this time, Huzi began to hunt the nest with the bait. He's hogging Dave's fishing spot. After they fixed the fishing rod, I start throwing in the bait. At this point, the receiver began to move. Tiger quickly pulled the line back. Tiger has predicted big fish from the pole. He adjusted the hull to the best position. Tiger Brother will skillfully move the fishing line back. Dave saw them serving fish not far away. Beard Brother also saw that it was a big fish. At this time, Tiger Brother has the fish nearly 20 meters. He began to pull the line back slowly with his hand. By this time, Tiger had pulled the fish to the boat. From this angle, I can tell it's a tuna. Tiger took a deep breath of excitement. Hat Brother can hardly keep from laughing. Now the big fish starts swinging the rod. Friends are also in command. 10 minutes later, still fighting the fish. Tiger continued to reel in the line. This is when the big fish begins to exert full force. Tiger with the fastest twist take up. Teammates also began to take command. From here, you can see the fishing line getting further and further away. You can see Tiger's full strength. He waited for Tiger to pull the fish out of the water. This makes it difficult for Tiger to control the rod. Tiger says this fish has a lot of pull. At this point, the big fish will move into the bottom of the boat. Tiger pulled the fish against the boat. That's when Dave saw they had stabbed. As they pull the fish to the boat, I can tell from the boat it's a 900-pound fish. Tiger Brother laughed excitedly when he saw the big fish. When they pulled the fish into the boat, Hat Brother was already excited to sit on it. This fish looks very long from this angle. Dave was already looking for his next catch. The camera comes to Bill. Bill said he was in luck today. Bill said the fish was Dave's. He said the fish was at least 900 pounds. Dave was still looking for a catch. Paul also got the news about fish. When he got the news, he couldn't hold back. At this time, the old horse has no move. Dave said he wanted to get in a fish that big. He expressed good luck. They'll measure out 2 meters wide and 5 meters long. When they pulled the fish out of the boat, the hat has already recorded today's results. When the fish was weighed, it was over 1,000 pounds. After the fish quality and team negotiations, the buyer offered $20 a pound. Finally, the buyer offered $15,000 to recover. The camera comes to Dave. He said he didn't get anything today. He will stay up late fishing tonight. Paul says he has to catch 1,000 pounds tonight. By this time, Old Horse and Dave had begun to adjust the equipment. He said he would not settle without a fish. Dave will change his fishing spot in the morning. By this time, Paul had organized the equipment. Dave felt that if he persisted, he would get results. At this point, they will begin to nest. Paul says they'll start serving fish today. They also fixed the fishing rod. Dave says it's a good spot. Paul said as long as they had enough bait, then there will be gains today. The camera goes to Brother Beard. Today, he will go shopping for equipment. He said there was no good equipment. Even the big fish can't be caught. He picked out hooks, lines, and bait equipment. He said he would catch a 1,000-pound fish this time. He will end up spending $300 on equipment. Buy the equipment and go to sea. He's going head-to-head with Dave again today. He said he wouldn't let Dave hook up with a big fish. His team has fixed the fishing rod. Now we're just waiting for the big fish to bite. By this time, the old horse had begun to throw bait in the water. Dave says it takes patience to catch a big fish. Paul has arranged the hooks. He said the weather was perfect for fishing. There's no fish he can't catch. You wouldn't believe it. The old horse laughed at Dave's conversation. His team is already in fishing fishing mode. He thinks Dave got lucky the other day. Hat brother also began to laugh. By this time, Dave had contacted Hooker. He said it was hard for him to see fur on a fish. Beard responded that he felt bad when he saw Dave on the fish. Dave says they'll change the fishing spot. Paul and the old horse have brought the anchor back. Mr. Who said he had never seen a 1,000-pound fish. At this point, Jay also began to nest. Brother Who Z saw a ship ahead. He thought the boat was a fishing buddy. He took out fresh bait and put it in the water. Then something started to happen. There was a sound from the fishing rod. He picked up the fishing rod and pulled in the line. He said something was happening at last. Fish are slowly coming to the surface. Pulled to the side of the boat, they found the fish too small to sell. He had to untie the hook and release the fish back into the sea. Jay could only look at the fishing rod with disappointment. Who Z brother said today again in vain. Jay decided he couldn't sell the fish. Who Z brother also complained that the recent luck is not very good. You can tell Jay doesn't have the confidence to fish anymore. He said they were returning to port without any fish. By night, Dave's team had packed the bait. He was very confident about the voyage. Paul says they feel bad for a day without fishing. Jay regained his confidence after a nap. Who Z brother said it was a new day. He thinks he can still catch the big fish without running out of bait. Today, he's taking his biggest team out to sea. He says there is strength in numbers. This time, he will bring out a very rich bait. He says you need the best bait to catch the big fish. You can see it from here. His team executed very well. Who Z brother expressed hope that today can have a harvest. Jay is already picking out the rich bait. He says the fresher the bait, the better. He threw the bait into the water. The camera goes to Dave's team. Paul has been complaining for so long. Still no fish bite. He said he had had a particularly bad week. Their fishing rods haven't budged in all this time. Dave indicated that it was getting dark again. He couldn't sleep at the thought of fur on 1,000 pounds of fish. Paul says he can't sleep these days. Old horse still calmed down and do his thing every day. Now the fishing rod began to move. The old horse helped the rod hold the line back. He twisted the reel as fast as he could. Slowly pull the fish against the boat. Gradually, I saw the fish coming out of the water. Then Dave saw a little fish. When the fish pull up to the side of the boat and surface, Paul had already seen Dave's smile disappear. Dave says serving fish is a waste of time. After they pulled the fish to the boat, he unhooked the fish, put it back in the water. Dave said catching a small fish was a surprise. Paul thought it was a bit of a waste of bait. He continued to drop the bait into the water. Dave said it was the first time he had caught a small fish. Bill was still swinging the hook. Nami complained that the sun had gone down and there were no fish. Glasses said it was another day without a harvest. Nami means no fish for a long time, so now they're used to it. He's still showing off his 1,000-pound fish. By this time, his teammates had. The rich bait is ready. He says Dave can't get ahead of him now. By this time, Dave's team had lowered the anchor to the water. Paul also checked that the fishing rod was in good condition. He said the effort will be rewarded. Dave doesn't think there's any fish he can't catch. At this time, Who Z brother finished lunch ready to start fishing. He said he had to eat to fish. They began to cut the bait, prepare to release the bait into the water. Their hooks are in place. He wants to get on the big fish soon. Beard was already adjusting the line. Jay cast the bait into the water. Beard will pick fresh bait. He says as long as you have plenty of bait, bigger tuna will be caught. The fresher bait attracts a lot of tuna. Jay suddenly spotted a boat in front of it. They started to serve the fish again. You can tell by the curvature of the rod that it's a big fish. Tiger pulled the line back quick. Glass's brother has seen the fish through the telescope. Tiger, with a skilled pulling motion, slowly pulled the fish back towards the boat. Tiger slowly pulled the line back with his hand. Gradually, I saw the fish come to the surface. Hat brother had already got his harpoon. As Tiger pulls the fish close to the boat, he went straight in with the harpoon. As they pull the fish to the boat, they pull the fish into the boat, and you can see it's a big fish. By this time, there was movement at Dave's place. The probe began to beat. All of a sudden, the take-up began to ring. The old horse pulled in the fishing line as fast as he could. You can tell by the curvature of the rod that it's a big fish. The old horse slowly pulled the line back with skillfulness. Then the big fish suddenly began to exert force. You can see that the fishing rod is bent to its limit. The old horse continued to pull with the big fish. He quickly pulled the line in with his hand. When the fish surfaced, Dave found another little fish. The old horse was no longer smiling. Paul said it was a particularly bad day. They drew the fish to the boat, unhooked, and released the fish back into the sea. He was very uncomfortable. Paul saw Dave's face and he grew smaller. It was clear that Dave was in a very low mood. He was the first to return to port. Pull the fish out of the boat. You can see that this tuna is huge. They cut the head off the fish. The fish weighed in at 800 pounds. Negotiate over fish quality. The buyer offered $16 a pound. They ended up with $9,000. The camera goes to Brother Beard. They still have so much bait. You can see that the anglers are very serious about fishing. Who Z brother said fishing is is very patient in fishing. You can see the bearded guys not even coming. Then the fishing rod suddenly sounded silky. Brother Beard immediately picked up the fishing rod. He handed the fishing rod to Jay. Jay retracted the line with skillful action. He quickly twisted the reel to pull the fish closer. You could tell he was using all his strength. By now, he was exhausted breathing. He exchanged the fishing rod for his fishing friend. Huzaib said, "Let fishing friends experience happy time." You can see that the fisherman is using his full strength. The beard means that the most important thing about fishing is to have fun. Fishing continues to bring in the line. At this time, Huzi brother in command fishing friends. He said to let the boat fishing friends experience. At this point, the fish also pull to the boat and they pull their tails over. They started pulling the fish into the boat. The beard indicated that the fish was bigger than he had imagined. It's a pretty good fish from this point of view. Fishermen are excited to touch the body-ish. By this time, Dave had returned to port. He says there haven't been any big fish these days. They've been in the Air Force for a week. Paul said Joe was their bad luck. They will lose $800 on the voyage. Dave says he can't sleep without a fish. At this time, Huzi brother also returned to the port. You can tell from here that they returned to Hong Kong overnight. The beard brother bought to let the fishing friends see their results. You can see that this fish has a very nice color. The body of the fish is also very large. They will take pictures to remember their achievements today. You can see that the quality of the fish is very red. They weighed the fish at 900 pounds. Through fish quality and negotiation, the buyer finally offered $15 a pound for recycling. They ended up making $13,000. At this time, the fishing friend is also very happy. The fisherman said it was the first big fish they had caught. Jay laughed happily too. What other big fish will be caught next? Let's wait and see. It's supposed to be the most lucrative job for the average person. It only costs $500. I can catch a tuna weighing hundreds of pounds. This head alone could fetch him $8,000. You want to be $1 million a month fisherman. There are 3 weeks left in the season. The weather is very bad today. There may be storms in the next few days. Patrol Coast Guard also came to inform them. The situation is worse than expected, but Ralph thinks high winds and waves are the best time to fish for tuna. He's more than willing to fight for money. The offshore winds are now at force 30. David thinks it's time to retreat. Their boat is too small. A boat can easily capsize in rough seas. They think it's too dangerous. It's a matter of life and death. Decided to go back early tomorrow morning. Yet the harbor was calm. Dave and his wife were at home discussing their plans for tomorrow, despite knowing the storm was coming. It doesn't stop these two stone guys from having a candlelit dinner with the lights on. Because of the pressure of children's tuition, Dave wants to venture out fishing tomorrow, despite the wife's constant opposition. But Dave thinks the fishing season will be over if we don't try. Bald wife saw him determined to die, so I'm not going to persuade you. Dave's dead, and he's remarried anyway. A little dowry, and you'll be flat in your next life. Dave knows he can't keep up with her, but he was left with the choice of going fishing or going broke. I should have never married such a beautiful woman. There's no use regretting it now. The harbor is getting rougher. The scary news keeps coming. The signs tell a story. That's what's going on right now. I'd advise any fishers not to go out. It would be a waste of national resources looking for it. But the bigger the storm, the more expensive fish. Dave was out fishing this morning. He's just thinking about fishing. Anyway, totally oblivious to the fact that the guys on the boat are stoned. Jay felt very shaky in the boat. Dave thinks the waves are big right now. The fish won't hear them talking up there. It's easier to catch big fish. Ralph tried his luck at sea too. They decided to go to a new fishing spot. Let's hope the storm doesn't interfere with their fishing. Each trip costs $500. They have had no harvest for 2 days in a row. Ralph relies only on fishing for his income. Others can go fishing in fine weather, but he must go at all times. That made him feel sorry for himself. My team thinks we might meet a big fish in this weather. Soon they came to the fishing spot. His teammates began to clean up their rods and fish. Dave's back to work. He kept throwing bait into the sea to make nests. The weather is very bad now, but the good news is Dave saw a tuna. I hope today will be good luck. Teammate Jay is watching from the probe. They found a dozen tuna just under the water. He's as excited as a baboon after mating. Dave keeps dropping bait on the nest. It's up to the family to change their wives. Dave keeps an eye on the probe. Suddenly the line began to jerk. Jay excitedly started his rod. I've waited so long for the fish. Dave's steering the boat. Jay is in charge of pulling the fish. The ship was already flooded with water. You can imagine how hard this fish is to catch. Dave has to work with Jay. If a ship goes too fast, it is easy to unhook. Drive too slow and get ripped. While fishing, you must change positions according to the direction of the fish. The line keeps getting pulled. That's a long time to fish. They never saw the fish. Dave thinks they caught something big. The line was pulled very tight. Dave guessed that the waves were too big, causing the tuna to get very excited. Jay took advantage of every opportunity to tighten the line. His hands were tired and sore. Dave came over to take over the fishing rod. He guessed that the fish weighed about 500 pounds, if that's the case. So this fish is definitely a big one. Now Ralph and his crew are looking at Dave's fishing boat. I've already figured out that they might be fishing. It's worse to watch someone fish than to lose money. Dave finally pulled the fish up here. When the fish surfaced, Dave took the harpoon and hit the fish. The harpoon accidentally fell into the water while trying to hook fish. The fish lost a hook before it could be pulled up. Good thing this tuna is really big. As long as the fish is there, it won't lose. It took a lot of effort to get the fish under control. The tuna won't pull him in right away. You need to drag it through the water for a while. This will help cool the blood and prevent burning the fish. It's killing Ralph here. Seeing someone catch a fish is worse than being cucked. The fish was not caught. Instead, it attracts a flock of seagulls. Play with the birds to lighten the mood. Once Dave's cooled the tuna down over here, I pulled the tuna into the boat. The size of the fish surprised them. The most beautiful tuna they've caught so far. Bigger than they thought. They must get rid of the fish as soon as possible. Tuna is warm-blooded. Before they reel it in, tunas swim vigorously in the water. The blood temperature in the body will be very high. Once it stops, the blood burns the flesh and turns it dark red. They cleaned out the gills. They then fill their bodies with large amounts of ice to cool them down. The fish didn't just pay for Dave's school fees. I get to keep my beautiful wife at home. David doesn't stop when he gets back to port. Go immediately to the fish shop and choose your tools. They learned that Dave had caught an 800-pound fish. I can't be anxious right now. It's like when someone catches their own fish. But Ralph sighed. Ever since I saw Dave fish, that old face is longer than a fishing line. You may not have much luck today. So they decided to return to Hong Kong to rest. On the way back, the water kept hitting my face. My teammates' underpants are soaking wet. Every time I go home, my wife says it's too salty. That's all for today. But David and his family are night fishing. I found out during the day that Dave was in the boat. This high guy went out all night to try his luck. Cut a bunch of bait. I hope we catch a big fish. Dave and they spent the night at sea yesterday. Today they hope to catch another big fish. An 800-pound tuna was caught yesterday. If we have any more luck today, forget saving the beautiful wife at home. Marrying another mistress is not a dream. David gets in touch with Dave. It says congratulations to Dave on his big catch, but it's really about stealing a lesson. Hi. Asked for Dave's location. David really thought Dave had shit in his bald head. Dave knew David was up to something when he heard it. He gave David the wrong location. These people are human beings. Can I tell you anything about making money? The weather is better today, but the waves are still big. Ralph hopes to catch a fish today to make up for the loss of the last few days. Because the waves are too big. Their fishing lines intertwine. Well, that's just bad luck opening the fucking door getting home. Some are happy and some are sad. The joy of fish is back on Dave's side. The fishing line hissed as it was pulled. That's the sound of money. After catching an 800-pound fish yesterday, the fish are noticeably less excited today. The line was pulled tight. Dave didn't feel quite right. Sure enough, it got off the hook pretty quickly. I'm glad I wasn't too excited. Otherwise, you really will be seen as a clown. They weren't too disappointed. After all, this trip is all for the money. There's been no movement from David. Okay, the weather is not very good either. Keep trying to change bait to try your luck. Soon David noticed that the detector showed big fish. He guessed that the fish most likely weighed 1,100 pounds. While they were tidying up the fishing line, the detector beeped. Suddenly the line began to be pulled. It's the hissing of money again. They immediately began to fight fish and tuna. The line was pulled very tight. Decoupling is a possibility at any time. You have to control the hull to work with. Any part of the fault could have caused this big fish to escape. When the fish is pulled out of the water, a teammate with a harpoon and a shot. The fish is still fighting for its life. Just tie the tail off. This fish is basically under control. Put the noose over the fish's tail. Then let the blood cool down in the toe. Good luck today. Dave's detector is also beeping. He immediately called his teammates to start nesting. And David's team, who just caught a fish, they are experiencing the waves. The boat was drifting very badly. Teammates began to vomit from seasickness. Dave's got engine trouble on the boat. He could feel the ship sinking. In this environment, it is very dangerous for a ship to break down. David didn't know what to do for a moment. He called a nearby boat on his walkie-talkie, but there was no response. After his many efforts, fortunately, the ship's engines were successfully started at last. I thought my wife was going to run off with someone again, just sail home. David and his family decided not to continue fishing. Well, I got something today. Nobody wants to die here. Dave's wife and daughter are waiting at the port for his safe return. I hope I come back with the tuna. The moment I saw my family, suddenly happy. After all, money doesn't matter. The most important thing is that people come back alive. alive. Dave and the boys came back with tuna. All the family members are happy to call deer. If there is no harvest, I'd say High was a waste of time. Dave cut the tuna tails off, holding it up for a photo with her daughter. The joy of victory should be shared with family. The market has not been very good recently, plus the underpricing from shady buyers. They sold the fish for only $7,750. That's not a high price, but it's not that low. Enough to cover your daily expenses for a month. Ralph hasn't had a harvest in days. He's stuck at sea. The bait keeps hitting its nest, but it doesn't respond. Just when they feel hopeless. The line finally responded. After waiting so long, I finally got the bait. This fish is not very big though, but it's enough for all their hard work these last few days to pay off. After some effort, finally got this tuna under control. They pull the fish straight into the boat. There was joy on all the faces. David, when they got back to port, the buyer evaluates the fish. This fish is low in fat. This means that its quality is not very good, but small restaurants love fish of this size. For David, it's all about making money. I hope we catch better tuna next time. He ended up earning $3,000, minus the cost $500, net $2,500. Ralph and the others made it back. I've been busy for days. Today is the day it pays off. The fish ended up earning $4,250. Subtract the cost, and that leaves us with $3,250. Overall, it was okay. Ralph kept telling the story of the 2 days at port. It's just so hard. What surprises will they bring us next? Look forward to the next video update. Do you want to work for $10,000 a day? That's the tuna fisherman. You only need to catch one tuna a day. You can easily earn thousands of dollars. The weather is very fine today. Bill is going out fishing early in the morning. His wife came over to help carry the stuff. She used to go fishing with Bill, but because of the age, no more sailing this year. She really misses being at sea. This time she didn't make it to sea. I felt my husband abandoned me in an instant. After a ton of dog food, Bill set off in his boat. The woman only affects her own fishing speed. David's team is already at sea waiting. They waited all morning without any fish. I feel very anxious right now, because the daily cost is a lot of money. I keep throwing bait and no fish bite. The detector shows fish swimming by. Teammates want to switch places, but David didn't do the same. After all the time we've been here, we can't let all that nest bait go to waste. There was a difference of opinion between his teammates and David. Instead of catching the fish, there was a conflict. Well, the ship is at the mercy of the ship. Ralph's side is also waiting at sea. It's not too rough today, but the line kept getting stuck. When there's no fish, various problems with fishing tools. Soon the probe beeped. The line was pulled in an instant. This is clearly a fish to be served. Teammates keep tightening the line, but it's not the tuna that's biting. It's a blue shark. You catch a shark and you eat it. This shark is not big, but it broke the rod. Ralph greets the shark family. The fish didn't catch a fishing rod that cost $500. Not catching tuna is a loss anyway. Nothing on Bill's end so far. Take the bait and take revenge on the seagulls. John caught a fish on his rod. It's not tuna though. The fish became John's pastime in his spare time. He caught a cod. There's something for lunch today. Their target is tuna. Before the fish is served, constantly switching bait and nesting. The monitor beeped from time to time. The next step is to wait patiently. Suddenly the rod was yanked. The tuna is officially hooked. His teammates started frantically pulling in their lines. It's normal to be excited after waiting so long, but there is no hurry. Sure enough, the tuna unhooked and ran away. They were so embarrassed that they were high. I want to find a shithole to dive into. Then they began to resume. All kinds of reasons anyway. It's hard not to catch a fish. It's not easy on David's side either. No fish ever took the bait. The waiting process is very boring. Maybe that's what fishing is all about. The longer you wait, the more excited I get when I serve the fish. The more disappointed the fish gets when they're unhooked. David was having trouble with his teammates. Teammates suggested changing the fishing spot, but David insisted on holding it. Watching them argue, I quickly found a tissue to learn Japanese from Mr. Kara. I'll come back when you're done arguing. There's a lot of harmony here on Bill's team. Just sitting here polishing fishing rods. Faced with the loss of tuna, Bill decided to rejoin his teammates. A fishing boat suddenly appeared on Ralph's side. This is a bottom trawler, very close to their location. Not only does it interrupt their fishing, and they drag their markers away. Ralph immediately contacted the opposing fishing boat, but there was no response. This is a very dangerous situation. They ran after him and shouted, asked them to return the mark. Finally, Ralph wants to call the police. The response was derision. Ralph, there's nothing they can do about it. Had to leave them. David, they've been at sea for more than a day. They had not eaten for a long time. You don't want to go back if you don't catch a fish. And there are still problems with teammates. David decided to replace his teammates when he got back. When Bill returned to port, I soon found a new teammate. Decided to replace John. More experienced teammates will help him catch more fish. Hey. When the bait is ready, Bill's about to sail out here. The The new crew set to work as soon as they got on board. That looks very professional. It's been less than 10 minutes since we dropped the bait. The line was immediately torn off. Gary immediately began to tighten the line, while another teammate opens the back door. Oh my God, that looks so professional. Open the door before the fish are caught. About 10 minutes. A tuna was pulled straight onto the boat. It's not very big though, but enough so they don't lose money. The next time, they put the tuna back. I didn't know what they were up to. It turns out that tuna must reach a commercial size of 73 feet. David's been waiting all day with no fish. In short, the fight is always loud. Crew disobedience and all kinds of problems. A swarm of seagulls appeared near the ship. Every time I see a seagull, I know there's no fish. The bait is all used up. My teammates look like they didn't care the whole time. If it were me, just throw him in the ocean. Suddenly, the sea began to swell. It looks like there's going to be another big storm. The rope of the anchor held the ship tight. It's clear the direction has gone in the opposite direction. Had to cut the rope to relieve the tension, but that's a waste of an anchor. They had to find a new one to use. This is a terrible day. Go back and come back tomorrow. Early the next morning, Bill brought in new players. After we set the terms, they went fishing again. And David's team, they're having breakfast. I thought David would be a better teammate, and he chose to appeal to his heart. It's better than Bill the high guy. He can change his teammates faster than he can change his wife. In the end, they chose to trust each other. Ralph spends every day at sea. Not as much as the other teams, though. But these guys are acting like idiots. As a result, they never caught any tuna. They didn't catch a single big catch in the whole round. I've been talking about it for a long time. I was so embarrassed I wanted to dive into a shithole. While he was staring at the probe, teammates are already pulling in the line. The fish came very suddenly, but a small tuna. They must release animals to maintain the fishery. The little fish gave them a brief thrill and gave them hope to continue to wait. Bill and they're ready to start fishing too. After getting things ready, found 5 big fish on the detector. Suddenly, they were filled with anticipation. If we can catch them all, we'll make a lot of money. Soon the fish will be served. But it was a small shark. They rushed to make a second bait drop. Soon the fish bite again. But what happened was another baby shark. The fish was not caught. Bill the high guy is suspicious of his teammates again, because he used to be a partner with his wife. Now when you can't catch any fish, you miss the old days. I feel like Bill's the one who needs to be replaced. The camera comes to David. David was put on the plane by Paul. I just had breakfast and I thought I was good. I didn't expect to run away after breakfast. Paul's fishing experience spans 12 years. Something of an old hand. Facing Paul's plane, David feels a little understaffed. He had to go to sea with another teammate. Let's hope they catch something big. But Paul's already hooked up with someone else. Bill invited Paul to join him in repairing the boat. Paul was joking with Bill about David. Said David didn't respect himself. Well, it was pretty bad yesterday anyway. Ralph finally has a chance to catch a fish. It's the hope they've been waiting for. Ralph says if you break the rod again, I threw my teammates into the sea. Learned the lesson of yesterday. This time, he did not dare to be so hasty. The fish was finally caught successfully. It's not very big though, but there's enough tuna for a few days. David, they haven't had a harvest in days. Fishing is a job that depends on the sky. Without luck, I've been drinking Northwest Wind almost every day. It also cost $3,200. Big Ralph's the only ones who get anything for the whole episode, although it's a small tuna, but at least it's done without a loss. The buyer waits on the shore for the fish. Cut the tail to assess the fat content of the fish. The fish ended up earning $4,200. $800 off the cost, and make a few $1,000. These days of work have paid off. What surprises will they bring us next? Look forward to an update in the next video. This is a bluefin tuna that weighs 500 pounds. This size is enough to make them extremely excited. One fish sells for $16,000. Easy monthly income of $2 million. This morning, Bill and Paul assembled. Paul officially joined Bill's team. Bill's a high guy who changes teammates every time he can't get a hook. Paul has 40 years of fishing experience. I don't know how long I can stay with Bill. I don't think Bill's a high guy anyway. Paul and Bill went to sea for the first time. It's too quiet when no one's talking. Paul felt that he was not getting fair pay from David. It was a cooperative fishing trip. You only get 1 bottle of iced tea for every catch. No one will want to do that. Why don't you leave early and wait for his retirement? Bill decided to take him to a secret location today. He thought there must be a big fish there. I hope Paul can catch it. It was just the 2 of them on this trip, so Paul was very important to him. Now the 2 of them are confident. I feel like I'm going to catch a big fish today. Paul was bragging about how he was going to catch the big fish. I just hope this high guy doesn't get punched in the face. Upon arrival at the destination, Paul started working on his own initiative. Now he feels incredibly comfortable and stress-free. They're all so easy to do. David's plan today is to get the best position before he goes. Facing Paul's betrayal. He's very depressed right now. I wish Paul would tell him to his face. I didn't think it was my problem. Share the pain. If you are blessed, enjoy yourself. The 2 worked together for a very long time. I fished a lot of tuna, but every time it was either a box of sausage or a bottle of iced tea. Paul was doing himself a favor by just leaving. If it were me, take your wife with you. Now Sandro is the only teammate. David decided to give him a 50% cut. Sandro finally got his chance. The third party benefits from the tussle. David now realizes that it's a partnership with his teammates. It's not a simple employment relationship. I don't want to give it to my teammates. I guess he won't have anyone to play with. Dave's going out to sea today. Tuna was caught the other day, then took a few days off, sailing with Jay again today. Jay is Dave's nephew. It teaches him a lot every time he goes out to sea. Of course, there is a scolding. Jay really wanted to prove himself. He doesn't want to be pinned down all the time. There are still 3 weeks left in the fishing season. They must try to catch more fish in the limited time they have. Others they have open fishing. Paul's been raving about all the good things around here. He likes to follow Bill anyway. He felt everything was fine. While fishing, he needs to keep throwing bait. In my spare time, Paul never stopped talking, always making fun of when I was with David. How unfair it is. The others have been silent. I wonder if Bill has any regrets. I thought we had a fishing kingpin. I didn't expect a loudspeaker. It's been beeping, beeping, beeping. Not making fun of David, just bragging about how to catch a big fish. If I were Bill, just grab a handful of dead fish and stick it in his mouth. Anyway, Bill needs a fish right now to prove he didn't make the wrong choice. David, the detectors are beeping. 2 big fish appeared nearby. The fish started coming as soon as Paul left. If I can catch a fish, that's definitely a pretty good comeback. David also wanted to prove that he could do without Paul. The detector is ringing. Sandro kept throwing bait into the sea. The next step is to take the bait. David suddenly saw Bill's team not far away. He guessed at once that Paul had told Bill the secret location, but he can't care about that now. Tuna is nearby. Suddenly the rod was yanked. Several fishing rods are pulled together. Bill's keeping an eye on David. If this fish can be caught, I'd be jealous to death of each other. Sandro is retracting. David's coordinating with the fishing boat. This should be a big one. Bill saw David fish very quarterly. Paul told him not to take people too seriously, or you don't catch any fish on your own. As a competitor, I really don't see any good in each other. David's side is working very well with Sandro. In a tough confrontation between David and Tuna, suddenly the fishing line came unhooked. When I learned that David had failed to fish, Paul, the high guy, is smiling like he's high. Bill was instantly happy too, and he wrote taunts on the ball markers. In fact, I hate this kind of people. I can't wait for someone else to be nice. Dave came to the fishing spot. The first thing to do is to lower the anchor and secure the boat. Then I set up my fishing rod. The bait is about to thaw. Just getting things ready. The probe went off. The weather is fine today. Should catch some tuna. Dave and Jay work very well together, even though Jay gets yelled at every now and then, but still happy. Bill's been waiting all day without any fish. He plans to sail again in the morning, even though there's nothing to gain. But Bill was happy to go fishing with Paul. Paul was also desperate for a fish to prove himself to Bill. He's going to hit David in the face with tuna. Early the next morning, Dave is back where he was yesterday. But here they didn't see anything. The Resource Bureau is giving them less quota to fish. Now, we can only catch 2 fish a day, although it is reduced, but it doesn't affect them. What? Because 1 fish a day is smoke from the grave. No trace of fish was found here. They decided to move on to the next location to fish. Fishing is all about luck. Encountering big tuna is also a stroke of luck, although a fish can make a lot of money. But this is all about the sky. Fishing season is only a few months long, but they often make a year's worth of money on the tuna they catch in a month. Bill took his wife with him today. Hope for better luck. Paul, the high guy, is doing stand-up on the boat. Little did he know that he had become a wage earner for the Bills. Paul was making Bill's wife laugh with his big talk. It shows that it looks very harmonious. While fishing, you need to keep cutting the bait for the nest. It's the only way to attract more fish. They make fun of David from time to time. It really hurts. David and Sandro were fishing nearby, too. They don't like watching the Bills team, but not all the time. Only catch fish. To drive each other mad, they've been looking for a location. There was no sign of any tuna. Time passed day by day. Bill put another teammate on the boat. I see they haven't been serving fish. I just kept talking. Sometimes I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. These hippies haven't caught anything but fish. Do you really say anything? Another day passed. The Bills teammates from yesterday are not here today. Again, he came out alone with Paul. The bait on the line changed hundreds of times, but no fish bite for days on end. It costs hundreds of dollars a day for fuel and bait. Paul would occasionally catch some small fish as bait. Bill is contacting David for a chat, and Paul saw it, but he made fun of Bill for not paying attention to his fishing. That's why we never catch any fish. It's boring here with Dave too. No fish were caught for days on end. The money I made the other day, the cost is going back up again these days. Jay keeps dropping bait, despite the occasional sound of the detector. But that noise has nothing to do with fishing. You don't always get a fish. Jay kept an eye on the fishing rod for movement. David's got a big fish on his side too. He asked Sandro to bring the bait. We're going to put out some bait to attract tuna. The effect was immediate. as long as David is a fish. The jealousy started on Bill's side. They wondered why David was so lucky. Paul mocks David. Even if you catch a fish, you may not catch it. Bill started shutting down. How could David be so lucky? David and Jay are working together. This time there is no rush. David guessed that the fish should be worth $10,000. When the fish gradually lost strength, David is just beginning to reel in the line. Bill's been watching with binoculars. Deep down, they don't want David to make it. Paul always made it a point not to care about each other's fishing. The more I say it, the more I care. After all, teammate Bill was watching with binoculars. There's a lot of tension around David. They've pulled the tuna to the surface. Spear the fish when the time is right. The tuna was successfully contained. This victory is unquestionably David's. This tuna is very big. Waited so long. Finally get to hit Paul and Bill in the face with this fish. Congratulations to David's team on their revenge. Bill was very happy when he saw it. Thinks Paul's a loser. Paul said to Bill, maybe the next fish will be yours. The cake fed Bill instantly. Others are fishing for tuna. And they're fishing for bait. Now all they talk about is the ship. I stopped making fun of David. I guess the mentality has been messed up. Well, if it collapses, it collapses. It looks good to me anyway. Dave, the detectors here show fish in the vicinity. But there was no bite hook. Under the water, these two fish are very big. If I can catch it, I'll have enough for the next month. There are 3 fishing rods in the boat. Jay kept dropping bait. As the detector's sound intensifies, the bait is getting bigger and bigger. Suddenly the rod was yanked. Once again, fortune favored them. I've waited so long for my chance to finally come. Jay's trying to pull the tuna up. Dave was at the ready with his harpoon. The tuna's resistance was not very fierce. As long as it stays on the hook, we can catch it. Jay slowly tightened the line. We thought we'd bring the fish to the surface soon. I didn't expect the tuna to take off. Start yanking the line. Fishing is a constant struggle. Soon it has no strength to be pulled up. Dave took a shot. So many days of waiting. Finally caught a big one. This fish weighs about 500 pounds. It's a very beautiful tuna. Tuna caught needs to be cooled back in the water. They used a crane to pull the tuna onto the boat. The size of the fish surprised Jay. This head is really too big. Days of hard work finally paid off. Jay shouted with joy. Dave thinks the fish is worth about $10,000. If I catch one every day, it's not a problem to go home and take care of a little girl after a month. Jay thought he was hopeless. But today's harvest made him feel that the wait of the last few days was worth it. This is a bluefin tuna. I'm sure I can get a good price. They immediately returned to Hong Kong to sell fish. David and his men returned to port first. They got something today, too. David asked for a price of $20 a pound, because this fish is very good today. The buyer saw that and it looked pretty good. David was very sad about Paul's departure. He needed to catch a fish to prove himself. The fish was bigger than he had imagined. The buyer offered $16,300. Subtract $1,500 costs. They netted $14,800. Dave and his men returned to port. The buyer is already here waiting. Dave caught a really good fish today, too. The fish is long enough. The fat content of fish determines the price of fish. The buyer takes a sample from the fish's tail. To see that kind of meat, Dave was already very confident. The core of the fish looks very good. Blue ribbon quality. Dave couldn't help laughing already. This is the best tuna he has caught so far. In the end, the black buyer offered a high price of $8,500. After deducting the cost of $1,500, net $7,000. Although it's a lot less than David's. But they were already very content. What surprises will they bring us next? Look forward to an update in the next video. It's really strong. Waiting at sea all day to catch a tuna. When I thought it wasn't worth it, I didn't know the fish was so big. It sold for $16,000. Good heavens. That's $100,000 a day. Is sea fishing so easy to earn? It was past 5 in the morning. Ralph and they came to the harbor. They believe in the early days of the bird getting the worm. So get your fishing rod ready today before dawn. They haven't caught any fish lately. Fishing season ends in 2 weeks. They took advantage of the last moment. Try to catch more fish. Now they're too anxious to sleep. They're desperate to end the season with a big catch. The same is true of Bill. They haven't caught any fish for days. I've been working with Paul for 2 weeks. Not a single fish was caught. They also set out to fish before dawn. Paul decided to take them fishing at a secret location today. It's the same position he's been using. Paul is a trader. He had been fishing with David's team for 12 years. He told Bill the secret location today, which means you've sold out David. Upon arrival at the destination, first drop the anchor to secure the boat. David's side also came to the fishing position early. He had guessed that Paul would tell Bill where he was fishing. As the season gets closer, there are fewer fish here too. David took out his lucky fishing rod. Hoped to catch a big fish before the season is over. At the last stage, the competition between fishing boats is acrimonious. Bill thinks David knows Paul well enough. You know what Paul's going to do. Bill contacted David on the walkie-talkie, but David didn't want to talk to Bill. Paul has been with Bill for 2 weeks. He was desperate to catch a fish and prove himself. Now he and David are like enemies. Dave and his boys are getting ready to sail. They caught tuna the last 2 weeks, so there's no need to worry at all. Fill it all up before you go out to sea. I hope today is a good day. Ralph finally got a fish on his side, only they caught cod. While waiting for the tuna, they need to catch some live bait. Catch and use now to save costs. Ralph thinks we should focus on tuna fishing, not some live bait. There was some disagreement between him and his teammates. It was clear that Ralph was too anxious. Everybody wants to catch tuna. Bill, they have money. Bait is bought by the plate. They came to David's secret fishing spot. Paul is very angry now. He misses a fish very much. Paul found a lot of fishing boats around here. It made him very strange. Bill thought he had been cheated. He can't quite believe there's a big fish here. Nearby fishing boats were closing in on them. This made them feel very dissatisfied. Teammate Gagun yelled at them to leave. I think Team Bill is a boatload of robbers. See someone else fish and pray for them to fail. Making fun of other crew members when they're bored. Now he's even more outspoken, but people don't want to talk to them. David also noticed a lot of boats nearby. Actually see fishing tuna oil. Some boats are recorded for the program. There are also many fishing boats. David shouted back at them, but the other side didn't pay any attention. That's a pretty close distance. No doubt it will give them a lot of competition. They're taking David's mark. He had to go up and argue with him. After hours of theorizing, the other side finally chose to leave here. Dave started fishing on his side. Catch a handful of seaweed and put it on your head. This look won't kill any of the girls on the street. Bill's been waiting a long time, but no fish ever took the bait. While Paul was preparing the bait, I suddenly noticed a fish bite, but it didn't hang. Got them excited for a second. He hurriedly installed the new bait. His teammates didn't really believe what he said. Paul is telling them the story with the hook. Bill hoped Paul would find a better fishing position, or we'll have to give him up. Ralph's team has been fishing. There's enough cod to excite him. To see a teammate like that, Ralph had to let him play by himself. The fishing line was tangled in the water. It's obvious that this teammate is not very smart. Once the fishing lines are tangled together, that's basically scrap. Ralph is rearranging the line. His teammates looked on stupidly. Maybe the only way to get over it is to push a teammate off and feed him to a shark. Had to sail home. Come back tomorrow. Back in port, he went to the fish shop, went buying fishing line, and hit on a bunch of proprietors. The two talked very happily. Finally, I earned another kiss before I left. It was past 5 o'clock in the morning. David and Sandro were reunited. They prepared bait. I went fishing early this morning, hoping to catch another tuna. After Paul left, David has no choice but to trust Sandro. Wait until the sun comes up. Ralph and his crew are out at sea. There were no fish late in the season. Make them very irritable. I guess the faster it gets, the messier it gets. They really want the tuna. They can't get fish. What is not available is often in turmoil. They are not the only ones worried. And Team Bill, the season will be over soon. They all want to bring home a tuna. 4 or 5 fishing boats were competing nearby. It's like a wolf with more meat and less meat. David and his crew are constantly changing their fishing spots, looking for a feng shui treasure. Bring up the anchor and leave. Bill, they're keeping an eye on David, and they're ready to follow. Take the anchor and go with David. This high guy is real, determined to compete with David. I'm sure David's side is speechless too. Why is there a dog following you all the time? When David found the fishing spot, dropped the anchor, and Bill and the others came here. This is what Paul said to David. I've heard like 10 times. This high guy is unbeatable. They started fishing at the same time. Bill flirted with David from time to time with his walkie-talkie, but David didn't want to talk to them. That's the sound of the probe. It's clear the tuna has come. David immediately calls his partner to start the bait. This is a critical time, whether you can catch tuna. It all depends on who's lucky. Bill and his team are competing here. Paul wished very much that David could see them serve the fish. The distance between them is very close. Tuna are drawn away from each other at any moment. It's just a matter of who has the better bait. Suddenly the line began to be yanked. Paul's fishing rod is already loaded. The fish is half the battle. Pulling it to the surface is a victory. They waited 2 weeks for the fish. David also noticed that his partner had already served fish. I haven't caught it yet, but enough to make them die of envy. Bill, they're already celebrating. I would literally die laughing if I did. Bill's team is the last one I want to see fish on, but the plot is often so angry. Paul managed to pull the fish to the surface. Bill always controls the boat with Paul. The fishing is very intense here. Follow your team in the harpoon. They succeeded in getting a tuna. This fish is very big. Can catch this fish. They'll be relieved the season is over. This fish is enough to cover the cost of the first 2 weeks. There is no doubt that today's victory is theirs. Jealousy belongs to David and his family. Paul waited 2 weeks. Finally, a tuna to prove itself. This tuna doesn't come easy. It all depends on who has thick skin. If they hadn't followed David here, I think this fish belongs to David and his family. A fish between 2 boats. There's a 50% chance of anyone getting on the fish. This tuna is very big. They immediately returned to Hong Kong to sell fish. The David team that stayed here is really jealous. The chances of getting fish in the same place in succession are low, so they decided to leave. David was very upset about it, but there's no way. Sometimes the sun shines on your ass. This is life. I'm in a shit mood today. Ralph and his crew spent a day at sea. There are a lot of seagulls around. There are almost no fish in this situation. Ralph keeps an eye on the detector. It shows a lot of mackerel. These things are tuna food. It's likely to attract tuna. Suddenly the rod was yanked. Get that fishing line right next to it. But the surprise didn't last long. The tuna was soon unhooked. They just lost the tuna. Yesterday, my teammate accidentally screwed up the fishing line. Fishing unhooked it again today. Go on like this. Ralph would really thank you. If I were Ralph, this stupid teammate is probably out in the ocean. Ralph is constantly teasing this teammate. If I hadn't taken him out fishing, maybe he's still in the trash looking for fast food. The weather suddenly turned very bad. Ralph's temper also became violent. Dave and they didn't go fishing today. Others collect antiques and stamps. But he likes to collect tuna tails. This tuna is his record too. There's about 100 tuna here. The average tuna is $8,000. You can figure out how much it costs. Bill and they finally returned to port. Today is a fruitful day. Bill hopes it will fetch a good price. Bill's wife was so happy she was flying. Finally a tuna. They sell the fish to a buyer. The fish is very big. Everyone waits for the price of the fish. After all, one fish can pay for food for months. The fish weighed 503 pounds. Belongs to the fish of their dreams. Bill's wife gave Bill the approval. Everyone took pictures around the tuna. They're the ones having the most fun today. The fish is 2.4 meters long. The color of the fish is very beautiful. The meat is not cloudy or brown. It's a very high-quality tuna. Fish is also very high in fat. The buyer offered $15 a pound. They received a price of $7,500 for the fish. Take out the $1,000 cost. They have $6,500 of profit left. 3 people could each get more than $2,000. That's a pretty good profit. This morning, Ralph came to the port alone. The Han team from yesterday didn't show up today because he got fired. Ralph thought he looked like a fool on the boat. It doesn't help if you don't catch the fish. Han's team is now very upset with Ralph. Throw things at him when you get angry. I feel very bored without work. Weiter morning. He came to the harbor and waited. He hoped Ralph would still ask him to go fishing. But Ralph didn't want him on the boat. There's no way this job's gonna happen. Well, that's just bad luck opening the fucking door and getting home. There's 1 week left in the fishing season. Every captain wants to catch another tuna because it's about whether they have enough to eat for the new year. So it's definitely going to be a very competitive week. Dave went fishing after 7 o'clock in the morning. The temperature is getting lower and lower now. He planned to head south to go fishing. There are quotas for fishing, but with our current luck, making the quota is a bonanza. Overfishing is simply not achievable. Jay caught a lot of mackerel. This is Tuna's favorite bait. You can fish more when you have time. This can lead to significant cost savings. They usually fish with live bait. Dave needs tuna to pay his daughter's tuition next year. Don't talk about being poor when you catch so many fish. David also said he had a lot of pressure. There are fewer and fewer tuna around, and increasingly competitive. In the end, it was Paul the trader. Give Bill the location, and with Bill against themselves. David is very confident about the challenge of the final week. Bill and the others came to the fishing spot. They were very excited to catch fish yesterday. Today is full of confidence. The detector showed lots of fish nearby. Suddenly, Paul thought he could do it again. This high guy is really gross. A regular backstabber. But Bill approved of him. Ralph goes fishing alone. He has abandoned his foolish teammate. I can do a lot of things fishing alone. But if I can catch a fish, then it's all yours. He's enjoying himself. Anyway, if you don't catch any fish, it's no use bringing as many teammates as you can. Dave over here. Teammate Jay was crying when he dropped the bait. No fish for a week. 2 buckets of bait a day and no response. This isn't for fishing. It's like feeding the fish. Dave wiped the fishing line with a towel. An oil deposit was found. He suspects it has something to do with the temperature of the water. Tuna don't like these conditions. Looks like we're going to have to switch places. Bill and they came to the fishing spot. Paul hooked the bait with a fishing hook. They used different lures to fish. Tuna eat whatever they like. We have a tuna sighting at 100 meters. With any luck, I think it'll draw it up. All you have to do is bait. Soon the rod began to be yanked. Paul's rod catches the fish again. The tuna goes under the boat. Bill had to turn the ship around. If we decouple at this point, we'll be pissed off. The fishing line was hung from another fishing rod. Teammates have to work together to clean it up. The main thing now is to exhaust the fish. Bill is constantly adjusting the direction of the ship. All it takes is one little mistake, are likely to cause the tuna to unhook. Teammates keep tightening the line. When the fish surface, Paul stands by with a harpoon. Now the tuna is under the ship. Paul picked his moment. The tuna was successfully contained. Teammates shouted excitedly. It's only been 2 days since the last fish. It was a clean sweep for them. Bill immediately contacted Ralph to brag. David was nearby listening, heard Paul say bad things about him. Ralph was very upset when he heard people serving fish. He was also very eager to catch a fish. It's been a week with no harvest. If you can't catch a fish, I'm going to get laughed out of my stupid team. Think to yourself, bring me fish. Even a mermaid. Dave calls David on the intercom. This is really idle boredom, looking for someone to blow water. But he hung up after a short chat. Because we're all competitors. There's no honesty at all. Anyone wants to catch the last fish of the season. They waited at sea for a day. No gain at all. We'll have to come back tomorrow. But Bill and his men are the real winners. They caught a tuna. It's not very big though, but it's enough for them to make some money. They bleed the tuna to cool it down, so that the fish won't be burned by the hot blood, can sell for a better price. Bill and they were able to bring things to a happy end. Today the fish is only about 290 pounds. A total haul of $4,000. Paul was as excited as a high. The continuous fishing gives them great confidence. Bill's wife is very fond of Paul too. If it wasn't for my husband, I think I'm going to give him a massage tonight. Early the next morning, David set out again to go fishing. We don't have a few days left. They have to fight for tuna. I saw Bill and the fish in succession. This makes my mood very upset. Every day we go out before dawn. The fish didn't catch. We're losing $500 a day on gas. Only catch more fish. To ensure a happy winter. Jay also wants more money to marry a wife. Every day at sea turned him into a high. Dave didn't go out to sea until after 7 o'clock today. He wasted 2 hours less than David. It's a waste of time if you can't catch a fish anyway. Dave's trying to catch fish before the end of the season. He and his daughter have not seen each other for a month. Want to go home early and rest. David was at sea for a few hours, but there was no hook. The situation is truly distressing. The waves are bigger now, and a light rain began to fall. It was a blow, no doubt. The bait keeps dropping, and there's no response. A lot of seabirds around is not a good thing. If you can get the tuna captain at the end of the season, you can sell the fish for a higher price. That's what every captain thinks. Dave, there's a lot of seabirds out here. These seabirds affect their fishing to some extent. Seabirds ate the bait as soon as it was dropped. This is a very helpless thing. Dave had to scare them off with cannon fire. The same goes for Ralph. You can't scare them away by shouting. It's so boring fishing on a boat all by yourself. Seeing them go so long without any fish. I talk longer and I get bored. The weather began to get cold. We're almost done with the bait. The fish situation is bad right now. They decided to pull up the anchor and go home. Before the season is over. Dave wouldn't give up fishing. He's going to fight until the last minute. There is no other choice. If I catch a fish. He ended the season early. Dave plans to try his luck at the bay tomorrow. Today was another fruitless day. Morning of the third day. They set out to fish again. Time is chipping away at their confidence. Although time is running out. But they didn't show any passion, did they? In the final stretch. Everyone has their own plan. Fortunately, the weather is not bad today. We still have confidence. At the end of the fishing season, these tuna usually sell for a very high price. $20 to $30 a pound. Today they come to the site of the biggest tuna ever caught. The fish weighed 850 pounds. The detector went off as soon as we got here. There's tuna in the water. As long as he's here, there's a good chance of catching it. Dave is ready to go wild fishing. Ralph has been alone at sea all day. When he's bored, it was beautiful to see the sunset in the distance. Suddenly the line was yanked. He needs to tighten the rod as he adjusts the boat. Even with 3 heads and 6 arms, I feel so busy that I want to fly. It's a good thing Ralph has a lot of fishing experience. He slowly controlled the rhythm. My arm's already sore. But to think there could be a $5,000 fish down there. He was instantly motivated again. Soon the tuna is brought to the surface. But that's not enough. The tuna must be exhausted. Ralph takes out his harpoon and hits the tuna. One man managed to keep the fish under control and tie the fish's tail with a noose. He had never felt at ease until that moment. Ralph accomplished the feat of hunting tuna alone. David and Dave are night fishing tonight. They fight for the last minute. This process is tiring. But to make money for the winter, they have to. Suddenly the line was yanked. Dave's got a fish in his ass. I waited all day for this tuna. Dave prayed it was a big fish. Under one operation, the fish was successfully contained. It doesn't look very big, but at least I can break even. Dave guessed it would be $7,000. Jay said it was a giant Atlantic bluefin tuna. They used a crane to put it up. Oh my God, is this head so big? The two were grinning from ear to ear. Dave, contact David. Told him about the tuna he caught. David is the only one left to lose. Ralph sells his tuna when he returns to port. The fish weighed 410 pounds. It sold for $8,300. Just over $6,000 after costs. This is a huge profit for Ralph. You don't have to give half to Han's team. Today this fish is for Ralph. A perfect end to the season for sure. Dave and his men returned to port. I waited a week to finally open. Dave is a very good fish too. He ended up with $16,000. Subtract the cost of $1,500 and make $14,500. This is probably the most expensive tuna I've ever seen. Good guy makes 110 grand a day. That's one a day. Estimated monthly income of several million. Everyone has something to gain. Only David was disappointed yesterday. They were at sea all night. Suddenly, the detector made a noise. This tuna appeared nearby. Soon the line was yanked. The fish waited all night and finally took the bait. David shouted excitedly. He and Jay worked together. In the most important moment, you must not panic. Soon the tuna is pulled out of the water. David took the harpoon and attacked, but it didn't hit. I had to look for another chance. It took a few struggles. Finally got this tuna under control. It's been a long time, and it's finally paid off. The episode was undoubtedly a happy one for all. All the teams caught a tuna in the final stage. David guessed that the fish would sell for $10,000. It was pretty big. When they got the fish up, the fish weighed a staggering 1,030 pounds. The final haul was $15,250. This season they have reaped close to $90,000. That's a lot to make in a few months. There have been many incidents this season, but the ending is always satisfactory. They caught a lot of big fish. Look forward to the surprises they bring us next season.